We're diving into proactive strategies, or all of these things that we can be doing to set our kids up for success, so that we decrease the chances that we're ever going to push them into engaging in problematic behavior. My name is Carrie Woodward, and I'm a board-certified behavior analyst. I've been working with autistic children, adults, and their families for over 20 years now. In the world of behavioral science, we have all these tools in our toolkit in order to address problematic behavior, to teach new and better behavior, and to try and decrease the chances that we're going to even see problematic behavior occur. And there's a lot that we need to consider when we're deciding how we are going to address problematic behavior when it happens. For example, punishment, from a behavioral perspective, is any consequence that we deliver following behavior that gets that behavior to decrease in the future. We often hear people misuse the term punishment because it's something that we talk about all of the time. But from a clearly scientific perspective, punishment is any consequence that we deliver that decreases that behavior moving forward. So let's say you have a child that screams all of the time, and you decide you're just going to punish this behavior. You get an air horn, and you blow that air horn every single time your child screams. And it scares the bejesus out of your kid. And if this happens, I will guess that that behavior of screaming is going to go away. Easy, right? Why don't we all just punish behavior all of the time if we don't want it to happen anymore? Because punishment comes with a lot of baggage. And people who don't even know that they're punishing behavior are doing it because they're just trying to get behavior to stop or go away. So they've come up with consequences that may not fit the typical idea of punishment, like spanking or going to time out, but they're punishing the behavior nonetheless because they are consistently delivering a consequence that decreases that behavior moving forward. But because punishment comes with all of these negative side effects, we really need to use that as a last resort. And there are so many other positive ways that we can approach behavior to try and decrease the chance that we're even going to see problematic behavior to begin with. One of the most frequent questions that I get from parents is, what am I supposed to do when my child does insert whatever problem behavior they're having at that moment? And this means what they're asking me is, what am I supposed to do after the behavior occurs? And this is what we call a reactive strategy. This is, what's the decided consequence going to be when this behavior happens? But approaching behavior management from a simply reactive strategy is very limiting. See, consequences are only 50% of what we have to consider when we're thinking about behavior. We have to also consider antecedents, or all the things that are happening before a behavior occurs that are setting up that child to engage in the behavior. What are the things in the environment that are actually causing the behavior to happen? Are there ways that we could be manipulating the antecedents in order to decrease the chances that the problem behavior will ever even occur? If we can do that, then we've successfully addressed the problematic behavior without ever needing to punish it at all. We call these proactive strategies. So as you can tell by the name, this is something we're doing before behavior ever occurs, rather than a reactive strategy, which is how we're going to address the behavior after it's occurred. These are all of the things that we can do to set our kids up for success. So what we're going to do in this video is we're going to talk about a variety of different, pretty common problem behaviors that parents have with their kids. We're going to talk about why that behavior might be happening, which is a very important thing to understand and know in order to address the antecedents or the manipulations that we want to do beforehand. And then we're going to come up with some different solutions that could address the behavior without ever needing to address the consequences for the behavior. This is just one side of the equation when we're addressing problematic behavior, remember. But if we can decrease the chance that we even see the problem behavior occur, then we're setting our kids up for success. And not only does that mean that your kids are happier because they're not forced into that place where they need to use negative behavior, but you're happier because you don't have to deal with it. Let's start with transitions. Autistic children often struggle with transitions, whether that be transitioning away from a preferred activity where they're having a lot of fun and they have to terminate that activity, or transitioning to go do something that is non-preferred or aversive. When transitions like this occur, we can often be met with protest behavior, crying, kicking, yelling, screaming, even self-injury. When I work with a parent that's struggling with this issue, the number one question is, what am I supposed to do when my child won't transition? But before we ever address the what to do when it happens, let's put in all of these strategies in place that give our child a better chance for successfully transitioning in the first place. As with everything behavior related, we always need to look at the why, or the function of the behavior, to really address the core issue at hand. Okay, so let's define it. Our problem behavior is resisting transitions, or engaging in problematic behavior when asked to move from one thing to the next thing. When we think about function, If you're working with a behavior analyst, they're going to really dive into determining the exact function of the behavior. Since you're not a behavior analyst, you can just do some investigative work to get a good idea as to why your child is engaging in this behavior. Most likely, you have a child who doesn't want to have to stop doing something that they're enjoying doing in that moment. Or you have a child who is resisting having to do something that they know that they don't like doing. And the third reason may be that you have a child who is incredibly rigid, enjoys routine and structure, and this transition was unexpected, they were unaware of it, and now they are resisting. So our solution to support and help this child successfully get through transitions is going to be the following combination of proactive strategies. A lot of advanced warning, notice, and consistency. Transitions are always more difficult when they're unplanned, unexpected, or undesired. And I think that we could all say the same thing is true for every human, not just our autistic kids. Visual schedules are a great support strategy for helping to outline to your child exactly what the expectations for the day are, or just for the portion of the day that you're dealing with. Depending on where your child is with their comprehension and level of understanding, a full schedule of the day could be wonderful to try and give them an idea of what to expect after every single activity that they complete. So you could do a whole schedule for the day. First we wake up, then we eat breakfast, then we get dressed, then it's iPad time, and then it's time to get on the school bus. If you have a child whose level of understanding might be a little less than that, first then schedules are great because it outlines first we complete this one task and then this is the task that's going to be coming next. For example, first brush teeth, then iPad. When you have a child who struggles to transition away from their preferred things, like they had the iPad and now it's time to put the iPad away, a longer visual schedule can be helpful because you can put that activity later in the day so that they can see, even though it's terminating right now, you still get to have access to that activity again in the future today. First then schedules are great for kids who have a hard time transitioning to an activity that they're not looking forward to. Because what you can do is utilize something called the PREMAC principle, which essentially states that we can increase the chances that our child is going to do that non-preferred task if we follow that task with a more preferred task. So on the visual schedule, you put the non-preferred task as first, and then you make sure to have a highly desired task in the then area. So in our example where we have first brush teeth, then iPad, we show our child this before we even ask them to go brush their teeth so that they can see once they've completed brushing teeth, they're going to have access to an activity that they really enjoy. This is going to increase the probability that your child is going to transition over to brushing teeth without engaging in problematic behavior. Side note, this is not a bribe. Clearly laying out the expectations for our child and telling them, either verbally or through pictures, what we expect our child to complete before they can have access to a preferred task or activity is a strategy to set them up for success. It increases motivation to complete the task because they know that the outcome is going to be something that they really want to do. In this arrangement, we've increased probability that your child's going to transition successfully, and then the iPad serves to reinforce or strengthen that transition behavior and successfully completing the toothbrushing, which we know is an aversive or non-preferred task. A bribe, on the other hand, would look like this. Hey, it's time to brush your teeth. Our child begins yelling, screaming, and protesting, and we say, here's your iPad if you'll promise to brush your teeth when the iPad time is over. This is a bribe. This actually takes things out of order so that what we're doing is we're reinforcing and strengthening protest behavior because we've just given them that preferred thing following all of that protest behavior. And there's no guarantee that your child is going to successfully transition to brushing teeth once the iPad time is over. The bribe is the backward way of doing it. What you want to do is clearly lay out the expectation for the behavior and what comes after the behavior, which should be something that is preferred. Back in the day, we used to create visual schedules by printing out pictures on paper, laminating them, and putting Velcro on sheets so that we could change pictures and create the schedule as we go. Now, technology has totally advanced us beyond the need to print and laminate. We can simply use apps on an iPad or on your phone in order to show your child visual expectations of what the day is in a sequential order, or if you're going to do a first then schedule, that works too. I'm going to link two of my favorite apps that we've used with kids in order to create visual schedules on an iPad or on a phone. The first one is called ChoiceWorks, and this allows you to either use cartoon representations that they have already preloaded, or you can take pictures with the iPad or create the visual schedule using the actual pictures of the activities that your child is going to be engaging in. The second one is called First Then Visual Schedules. And same thing, you can either use the pre-programmed pictures that they have for you that are more like cartoony, or you can take pictures and actually use the real photographs in the schedule. So these are two technology-based visual schedules that are great to support our kids' transitions so that we can set them up for success and we decrease the chance that we're even going to see that problem behavior begin in the first place. All right, let's jump into our problem behavior number 2. And this is doing any sort of homework or tabletop activity, school-based work, worksheets, academic work at the table with you at home. Okay, so what are our reasons why? What's the function of the problem behavior that we see surrounding this type of activity? Typically, we'd say the function is most likely escape or avoidance, trying to get out of having to do some work that is difficult or long or tedious or lacking reinforcement because it's just not a fun thing. So the proactive strategies that we're going to play with are making the tasks less difficult, shortening the amount of work or the duration of time that needs to be worked, working to strengthen asking for help or a break, and increasing the amount of reinforcement throughout the activity. If you have a child that is at the age where they're getting academic work coming home with them that you're supposed to complete at home, you're probably pretty well aware of this routine. It's time to do homework, and our kids immediately start to protest. They run away, they yell, they whine, they complain. Maybe they even push all of the materials off the table or throw their pencils. Whether it's homework or any other non-preferred task that our kids have to complete, we're often met with this sort of pushback when we announce that it's time to do it. If it's a transition issue, you can utilize all of the strategies that we used above and incorporate these strategies in order to set your child up for success. And like most issues when I'm working with parents, the question is, what am I supposed to do when my kid refuses to do his homework? And this is the wrong question to ask. The real question we need to ask is, what can we be doing beforehand to set our child up for success? When our kids are consistently trying to escape or avoid academic work, we really need to look at whether or not the work is too difficult for them. Are they getting the right amount of support and help with the work in order for it to be achievable? Nobody wants to be given work that we cannot complete on our own. And so we need to really look at how much is my child able to do on their own and how much prompting am I needing to give them to support them through this task. So let's just take simple addition. Let's say your child is working on simple addition for their math homework, and this is always a struggle. We can look at what are some ways that we can make this addition easier for them. Maybe we can turn every question into a multiple choice question rather than an open-ended question where they need to come up with the answer on their own. Maybe we bring in the use of manipulatives that they enjoy working with, like Cheerios or fun snacks that they're going to use to count out the problem so that they can come to the right answer without needing to struggle through it. Maybe your child can do the work, but they don't enjoy it. And this just means we need to bring more reinforcement into the work itself. Maybe after completing 2 addition problems, your child has access to their iPad for a few minutes. Or maybe after 1 minute of working, you're going to take a wiggle break and turn music on and dance. We need to make sure that we're building in as much reinforcement as the work that our child is putting in. Effort needs to equal reinforcement. So we need to bring reinforcement in if our child's having to do a lot of work and not accessing any reinforcement throughout. The other thing that we need to be doing is watching for the precursor behaviors. So what we're talking about are proactive strategies, things that we can do before behavior ever occurs. And oftentimes, our kids give us warning that they're building up to problem behavior. We call these precursor behaviors, or the behaviors that sort of reliably precede problematic behavior. Often we can start seeing agitation. Maybe it's a fiddling with the pencil. You know your child best, and so you know the things that you need to be looking for. And what we can do is when we see this beginning stage of agitation, we can give them language to request a break or help. Giving our children access to breaks throughout any sort of long tabletop activity is a great way to reduce the chance that they're ever going to sort of get to that high point and immediately try to escape the task. So when you see the beginning stages of agitation, either give them the language, like, hey, it looks like we're having a hard time. Maybe you could ask for a break. Say, I'd like a break, please. Or you can create some sort of visual that your child can hand over when they need to have a break. We used to put an index card on kids' desks that said break, and then we would just gesture to it when we could see that they were starting to have a hard time. And that was their cue to pick it up and hand it over and ask for their break. They could go take their break, wiggle their body, move around, and then come back and be refreshed when they sat back down to the academic work again. If we continue to remember that our child's problematic behavior is almost always serving as some sort of communication to us, it's ideal to try to get to the source of what they're trying to communicate and then give them a communication strategy to ask for the thing that they need. So if your child's a sign language communicator, you prompt their sign to take a break. If they're an AAC user, you show them on the iPad how they request break using their iPad. And if they're a vocal communicator, you give them the language to use that they can ask for the break when they are beginning to feel agitated. once they are completely escalated and engaging in problematic behavior, we've lost the opportunity for learning because they're not available in that moment. So we sort of have to ride out that episode before we can then come back and begin teaching a better way. The third and final behavior that we're going to talk about is resisting bedtime, or transitioning to bed, or going to bed. I think that this issue is not even just a struggle for autistic children's parents, but parents of all children. I myself have struggled through the issue of getting up out of bed at bedtime and coming out of the room multiple times. And instead of thinking, what am I supposed to do when my child comes out? We need to begin thinking about how are the ways that we can set our kid up for success before they ever even go into the bedroom. Yes, a consequence strategy is almost always also required here, but let's start by setting them up for success first. Okay, so what's the why? What's the function? Well, often our kids are not ready to be away from us, and they like us, and they want to be with us, and so they come out of their room because they want to spend more time with us. Or maybe they just don't like being alone in their room. It's scary, it's dark, there's things in there that make it uncomfortable to be alone in. Or maybe they're just not wound down enough, their body is still really active, and they want to play more. Okay, so the 3 proactive strategies we're going to talk about are establishing a solid, consistent routine, using visuals to support the schedule, and incorporating something called the bedtime pass. I think that this issue can be one of the most frustrating for parents because all problem behavior is frustrating. But at the end of the day, when you have had a long day with your kids and all you want to do is just relax on the couch for 20 minutes after your kids go to bed, and they keep coming out of the room, it can be exhausting. Let's try to minimize the amount of times that they come out of their room. The first is going to be a consistent routine. Routine is so important, and there's a few reasons why. There's a physiological necessity for this routine and a behavioral necessity for this routine. From a physiological perspective, our bodies start actively preparing for sleep when we're getting close to bedtime. So for example, melatonin, which is that hormone that we all produce in order to help support our sleep behavior, this starts being produced naturally when it gets dark out. So the sun coming down actually signals to our body to start producing melatonin as we are getting ready for sleep. Melatonin helps support going to sleep faster, falling asleep faster. So we want to make sure that melatonin is being produced when it is time for our kids to go into their room. So when we create a bedtime routine that is consistent every night and incorporates low, dim lights and calm, soothing activities, we're actually helping the body start preparing itself for sleep so that when they move into their bed, they're ready to begin falling asleep. Light is actually a known melatonin inhibitor. So please make sure that whatever your bedtime routine is, it involves low, dim lights and calm, soothing activities. Once you've established your routine, you can even stick to the routine better by creating a visual schedule so your child knows exactly what's coming every single night. When you're creating this routine in the visual schedule, add to it the things that your child would normally use as an excuse to come out of their room so that you can make sure to take care of all of their needs before they ever even get into their bed. So if getting a drink of water is a reason that your child comes out of their room, if going to the bathroom one more time is a reason your child comes out of their room, if giving you one last hug and kiss is a reason your child comes out of their room, put these on the visual schedule for the routine leading up to bedtime so that you can make sure you've checked all of the necessary things and that all of their needs are met before they go to bed. And then finally, we can incorporate something called a bedtime pass. So this is a really cool research-based strategy on decreasing the amount of times that our kids come out of the bedroom. Essentially what you do is you create a visual pass, whether this is on an index card or a laminated piece of paper, that you write on it bedtime pass. And this is your child's one opportunity to come out of their bedroom after you've said goodnight and closed the door. I've linked the research articles in the description for this video, so you can read the whole procedure if you wanted to implement this with your child. But essentially, when we give them this one opportunity to come out, 2 things happen. One is in the beginning, they may use it, but then they realize that they've used their one chance and they can't come out again. And so what you end up seeing is that kids start to save their pass and they end up not coming out at all because they don't want to run out of an opportunity if there should be a need that comes up where it requires them to come out of their room. And again, this is all proactive. It's all stuff we're doing before behavior occurs to set our kids up for success so that we're not pushing our children to the place where they're going to engage in problem behavior because we have not done the work beforehand and then struggling through some sort of punishment-based procedure in order to try to decrease the problem behavior from occurring again. When we tackle problem behavior from a proactive strategy, it doesn't mean you're never going to see problem behavior. It just means that you're going to see a lot less problem behavior because you're doing all of this work beforehand to set your child up for success. There's still probably going to be times where you need to understand how to address the behavior when it does occur, but that's a completely different video and different strategies, and most likely requires the need of a BCBA to help support you through coming up with what that process is going to be. But anybody can incorporate proactive strategies with their child without needing a BCBA to help guide them through it. What you need to be thinking about always is, why does my child engage in this behavior? What's their purpose? What's their function? What are they trying to accomplish with their behavior? And then how can I make it so that they're not going to have that need in leading up to this activity or task again? What are the things that I can give them? What are the tools I can give them? What are the things I can teach them so that we're not going to get to the place where they need to use their problem behavior to communicate to me? So these were just 3 different ideas of common problematic behaviors that I often see, the situations that typically tend to evoke that problematic behavior, and then proactive strategies that we can incorporate to try and decrease the chance that the problem behavior is ever going to happen. You can use this strategy for any of the problem behaviors that your child is commonly engaging in order to set them up for success. I hope you learned a lot in this video that you can take home and use right away with your child. Make sure to subscribe and follow so that you don't miss the next video when it comes out, and I'll look forward to seeing you on the next one.